Please welcome the Vice President of the United States, Kamala Harris, accompanied by Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg, EPA Administrator Michael Regan, FTA Administrator Nuria Fernandez, and DC Circulator Electric Bus Operator Mark St. Furman.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you all for joining, to leaders from Congress, from labor, from the environmental movement, all of those who are gathered here. Thank you for what you did to make this day possible. And I especially want to thank Vice President Harris for her leadership on so many of our country's most pressing challenges, including the intersection between transportation and climate. I'm delighted by the announcement that she will be making today to bring public transit into the future so that people breathe cleaner air and our communities are protected against the climate crisis. In our economy, transportation is the single biggest contributor to climate change and is responsible for over 55% of nitrogen oxides, dangerous gases that can contribute to asthma and other respiratory diseases. So that also means transportation has to be a big part of the solution to the climate crisis and to air pollution. One of our best tools for doing that is public transit. Transit gets riders where they need to be, efficiently and affordably, with far less pollution than driving. And it's even good for drivers of cars, because it means less congestion and traffic on our roads. And transit is even better when it's clean transit, with modern electric buses that don't pollute at all. We often talk about the costs of failure on climate, and for good reason, but we should also celebrate what Americans stand to gain through our transformation to a cleaner transportation system. For example, we're talking about a lot of good jobs with the choice to join a union, building, maintaining, and operating the electric transit buses of the future. And for the first time in this program, we have dedicated funding for training to make sure that the skilled operators and the mechanics working on diesel buses today are ready to be the electric transit workforce of tomorrow. And these electric buses must be built in America, something that will create a lot of good-paying manufacturing jobs across the country. Clean transportation can bring significant cost savings for the American people as well. Last month, we announced a $5 billion investment to build out a nationwide electric vehicle charging network so that people from rural to suburban to urban communities can all benefit from the gas savings of driving an EV. So today is about how we can deliver cleaner air, a better climate, affordable transportation, and good jobs all at once. And now it's my great pleasure to introduce an extraordinary leader helping to deliver on our clean transit goals, my colleague, Federal Transit Administrator Nuria Fernandez. Nuria?
Thank you, Secretary Buttigieg. This is truly an exciting time for transit. The plans for low and no emission buses we're talking about today are going to be transformational. The air will be cleaner in communities all over the country thanks to these buses that are also going to help our nation gain energy independence. There are buses that are built in America that do not get their fuel from a global supply chain. In fact, in Champaign-Urbana, Illinois, I visited an agency that is powering their new fuel cell electric buses with hydrogen created by using solar panels. The air is going to be cleaner thanks to fuel created in their own community. Low and no emission buses mean American energy, creating American jobs, connecting American communities. For those communities, it's going to mean bluer skies through less pollution and cleaner air to breathe for our children, our families, neighbors, painting our entire country a clean shade of green. Now, I'd like to introduce EPA Administrator Michael Regan to talk a little bit more about the work his agency is doing to keep our air clean. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Administrator Fernandez, and thank you for your partnership, you and Secretary Buttigieg, and for both of your leadership. It's an honor to be here today alongside Vice President Harris, whose leadership on clean and equitable transportation is longstanding. Under President Biden and Vice President Harris's leadership, we're pressing the accelerator to reach a zero emissions future sooner than most people thought. EPA's two announcements today are about seizing the opportunity that technology presents and driving towards a cleaner, healthier, more just future for all of our children. The first of these is EPA's Clean Truck Proposal. 72 million people are estimated to live near truck freight routes in America, and they're more likely people of color and those with lower income. Those overburdened communities are directly exposed to pollution that leads to respiratory and cardiovascular problems, among other serious and costly health effects. As directed by President Biden's executive order, EPA is proposing new, ambitious standards to significantly reduce emissions from smog and soot-forming nitrogen oxides from heavy-duty gasoline and diesel engines used on the nation's roads and highways. This will ensure that the portions of the heavy-duty fleet that continue to rely on the internal combustion engine during the transition to cleaner alternatives will deliver much-needed protections to our most vulnerable communities. These emission standards would do that by cutting nitrogen oxide emissions from trucks by as much as 60% in 2045 and by strengthening greenhouse gas standards for the model year 2027, resulting in widespread air quality improvements across the country, especially in areas already overburdened by air pollution from diesel engines. This proposed rule would ensure that the heavy-duty vehicles and engines that drive American commerce and connect people all across the country are as clean as possible while charting to advance zero-emission vehicles in the heavy-duty fleet. The benefits of this action would exceed its cost by billions of dollars, with the B, billions, saving lives, reducing emergency room visits, and preventing days of school and work lost to illness. And we've designed these ambitious standards so that they are feasible for the trucking industry after giving appropriate consideration to cost and other factors. But this is only the first step in EPA's three-part plan to get us to that zero-emission freight sector more rapidly. The next piece of the Clean Trucks Plan will reduce air and climate pollution from medium-duty vehicles, and the third will establish new and significantly stronger greenhouse gas standards for heavy-duty vehicles beginning as soon as model year 2030. We're taking this three-step approach because the freight and trucking sector is broad and complex, and because we cannot afford the health, environmental injustice, and climate consequences of waiting for every single segment to transition to zero-emission technology on its own. I'm also excited to tell you about our work to help clean up the nation's school bus fleet and protect the 25 million children in the United States who ride the school bus to and from school every day. Work for them. And Madam Vice President, I know this is an issue that has been long close to your heart. So today, I'm proud to announce $17 million in clean school bus grants to school districts all across the country. This includes $7 million of the American Rescue Plan funds, dedicated to reaching school districts in underserved communities and in tribal lands to help them purchase electric school buses and charging equipment. This round of school bus grants is just the beginning. And I say that because there's an unprecedented $5 billion, with the B, investment on the way for clean and zero-emission school buses from the bipartisan infrastructure law. This investment will transform how millions of children get to school each and every day. It will clean the air we breathe, protect public health, and tackle the climate crisis. I have a former teacher cheering out there in the crowd. Current Congresswoman. These grants will help build a better America by sending a strong signal to industry and communities that low and zero emission vehicles, well, they are the future. So that's what I mean by hitting the accelerator and protecting our health and our environment all at the same time. Folks, this is a historic moment for the transportation sector. And for EPA's part, we are excited. Today's Clean Trucks proposal and clean school bus grants are just the first steps on the route to a zero emissions future. Thank you. And now I have the honor of introducing bus driver extraordinaire, Mr. St. Francis.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you, AP Administrator Reagan, for the welcome. I'm thrilled to be here today. I am Mark J. St. Philman, a R8CP dev and DC circulator professional bus operator here in Washington, DC. I started working at the DC circulator in June 2005 when the service first began. Over the last 17 years, I have enjoyed transporting passengers to their destinations safely. I have met many people from all walks of life and driven thousands of miles across every part of our beautiful city. I started my career driving diesel buses, but as Mayor Muriel Bowser and the District Department of Transportation have worked to make our transportation network greener, I recently began driving an electric bus. Since making the transition, I have noticed a huge improvement in the experience, not only for me as a driver, but also for the passengers. Electric buses are more fuel efficient, better for the environment, and more comfortable for riders and drivers. The DC Circulator electric fleet offers electrical outlets and wireless internet access. While continuing our tradition of providing safe, reliable service for residents and visitors of the District of Columbia. I have also heard feedback for passengers that electric buses don't trigger the asthma symptoms nearly as much. I am looking forward to having more electric buses, cars, SUVs on the road and excited to hear the announcement today. With that, it is my pleasure to introduce someone who has a champion for electric buses and clean air, the Vice President of the United States, Kamala Harris. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mark, for that incredible introduction, but also for your incredible dedication to public service. The people of Washington, D.C. and our nation, thank you for your dedication. Well, good morning, everyone. Good morning. Today, we are joined by many leaders, dedicated, who have always been dedicated, I know you all, to improving the health and the well-being of all our communities. Secretary of Transportation, Pete Buttigieg, thank you for your leadership. Administrator of our Environmental Protection Agency, Michael Regan, thank you for your leadership. These two guys joined me yesterday. We were in Selma talking about the connection between these issues and what it means to fight for social justice and equality. Administrator of our Federal Transit Administration, Nuria Fernandez, thank you for your leadership. And to the members of Congress who are here, I see you when you are walking the halls of our Capitol, when you are there where the cameras are on and where the cameras are off, and you're always fighting for these issues and for the people of our nation. So I want to thank you all for being here this morning. And to our labor leaders and our community leaders, our environmental leaders, thank you all, because this truly is about a group effort. So it is a special pleasure, in particular, to be together this week, the one-year anniversary of the passage of the American Rescue Plan. And thank you, of course, to Gene Sperling, our American Rescue Plan coordinator, and Mitch Landrieu, our administration's infrastructure coordinator, who have done so much on behalf of our nation to make what we did in the halls of Congress hit the streets of America. And that's what it's all about. So I'll begin with a short story. When I was Attorney General of California, I heard about a town called Miraloma. And this town had some of the worst air pollution in the state. And I'd been hearing stories about the grandmothers and the grandfathers in particular, asking, shouting, pleading, will someone pay attention to what is happening in our community? They were demanding action. And this is a town of folks who work hard. They work hard. They are growing their families. It was a town where a lot of the folks were monolingual Spanish speaking, but were so dedicated and were so dedicated to their community. So I went there. I went to go visit with them. and to listen to them and to stand with them. And Mira Loma is a community not unlike communities around our nation. Hardworking folks, working hard jobs, just expecting, asking, righteously requiring that they be seen, that they be heard, and that their needs be taken seriously. And folks who are living in neighborhoods and communities across our country where they are in close proximity to large shipping warehouses or major highways. In Mira Loma, every day, heavy-duty trucks made more than 15,000 trips to that town's main roads, bringing with them, of course, soot and exhaust, and the air turned toxic. The first time I went to Mira Loma, you could taste the metal in the air. My eyes burned. The toxicity in the air was that thick. And studies, in fact, had shown, university studies had shown, that children from Mira Loma were suffering from some of the poorest lung development of any communities in our state. People there told me that family members, relatives, friends were suffering from high rates of cancer, asthma, and heart disease. And again, the fact is, there are many Mira Lomas all over our country. Communities that have been left out and left behind, and where pollution from heavy-duty trucks and buses has made the air poisonous to breathe. And this pollution is also, of course, accelerating the climate crisis, threatening the future not just of our communities, but of the entire world. And this is not how it has to be. Imagine a future, the freight trucks that deliver bread and milk to our grocery store shelves, and the buses that take children to school and parents to work. Imagine all the heavy-duty vehicles that keep our supply lines strong and allow our economy to grow. Imagine that they produced zero emissions. Well, you all imagined it. That's why we're here today, because we have the ability to see what can be, unburdened by what has been, and then to make the possible actually happen. So today, I am proud to announce that our administration is taking steps to build that better future by transforming our nation's fleet of buses and trucks. And that transformation will begin with public buses. This year, our Department of Transportation will make available nearly $1.5 billion, yes, Administrator Regan, with a B, in grants to help cities and towns electrify their fleet of public buses, build infrastructure to support their fleet, and train workers to run it. These grants will make public transit more reliable and more affordable, which of course means shorter waits and more reliable commutes for folks who need to take public transit to get where they need to go. These buses will be built in America, and these grants will also be used to train drivers and mechanics to operate, maintain, and repair this new technology. This investment will create good jobs, jobs of the future. And we are not stopping there. Through our Department of Transportation today, we are also allocating $2.2 billion in funding from the American Rescue Plan, thank you, Congress, to 35 transit agencies spread across 18 states. This funding will help communities employ more transit workers and keep transit services running. In addition, as Administrator Regan shared, today our EPA is issuing a proposed rule that will significantly reduce dangerous emissions from all new heavy-duty trucks and buses. And again, as the administrator shared, we are also announcing funding for, yes, one of my favorite topics, electric school buses. Today, $17 million in grants will complement the $5 billion for clean school buses that we secured thank you again, in the bipartisan infrastructure law. Our transportation sector has reached a turning point. We are all in the midst of a turning point. We have the technology to transition to a zero-emission fleet. Our administration, together, all of us, is working to make that possibility a reality. We can clean our air and protect the health of our children. We can connect all of our communities with affordable, accessible, and reliable public transportation. We can address the climate crisis and grow our economy at the same time. And I am here today to say, together, we all are doing just that. With the help of the American people, we are building a better future for all who call our dear country home. Thank you all very much. Thank you.